video is sponsored by Logitech. I found this delightful, lovely Leica in Tokyo during my used camera shopping spree of 2025, and I want to tell you all about it, as well as my fun shopping experience stories while I was there, and maybe it's a little bargain. It's quite an interesting piece of camera history. The Leica X1 has been on my list for a number of reasons. One of them being it's like one of the more affordable Leicas that money can buy, which appeals to me as a cheapskate, but it genuinely is quite interesting. It was the first Leica camera that was made entirely in-house. All the other previous premium compacts have been between a Panasonic and a Leica collaboration, so the Deluxe series, for example. The X1 was the first one that Leica did entirely in-house on their own, from the tuning of the colour science to the design to everything. And that's probably why it's a very sexy camera, because while Panasonic do make excellent cameras, I own all of them, sexy they are not. But the X1 very much is. Way back in 2009, the Leica X1 was a bit of a pioneer. Aside from the Sigma DP1 cameras, which I don't think Sigma get nearly enough credit for all the cool and wild and wacky things that they do in the camera industry, I'm a big fan. The Leica X1 paved the way for all the aps-c fixed lens cameras that we know and love today. It beat the original X100 from Fujifilm to market by a good 2 years. That came out in 2011. So here we have one of the very first premium compacts with an aps-c size sensor and a fixed lens. Said aps-c size sensor is 12 point something megapixels in all of its glory, which back in the day would have been, you know, set the world on fire. Today it's probably on the lower side. But the aps-c size sensor is very high quality, pretty good in low light, and it's paired with a 36mm equivalent fixed f2.8 lens. In fact, the image quality of this camera is so highly regarded that Getty Images, one of the biggest stock agencies in the world, it was the first non-DSLR camera that they ever allowed to have submissions from. So it was a pro-rated image quality camera in a teeny tiny little package, which is right up my street. Buying this camera in Japan, how did it go? Well, if you've never been before, there are 2 levels of used camera in Japan. I bought this from Kitamura Camera in Tokyo. There are a couple, it's a chain, and it's my lucky camera store. It's the same store that I found the Lumix GM5 in the year prior. So if you go to Japan, check out Kitamura Camera. It's epic. Anyway, there's 2 levels. You have used cameras, and then you have junk cameras. And I love the term junk camera. I mean, it brings up images of like bins of broken lenses and fungus and parts, right? This, the standard is so high in Japan that this was in the junk camera section. Why, you may ask? Well, I saw it in the cabinet, and I asked a member of staff to take it out, and I was like, could I please have a look at it and tell me what's wrong with it? Tell me where it hurts. This gentleman very graciously tried everything in his power to put me off buying it. If something isn't pristine, all the staff want to be completely and utterly honest about it, in my experience, and I love it. But also, I'm not afraid of a bit of cosmetic damage. Give me the bargains. I was like, why is this a junk camera? And he pointed very solemnly to this tiny piece of rolled up leather at the bottom. I was like, what? I turned the camera on. The menus were already in English. Everything was working. The lens was working. Everything was working. I was just like, is that it? And then the translator app came out. It's a great piece of technology. You can speak into it, and then it'll dictate out into the language that you need. So the translation comes out. I'm eagerly like, give me the camera, give me the camera, give me the camera. And he says, there is no original box. There is a third-party lens cover. This is a JJC1, you know, the kind that does that, which I love. And then, shock horror, there was a third-party battery. It's not the official battery. And I was like, all right then, that's fine by me, my friend. And he was like, no, you know, like, it's a junk camera. I'm like, no, it's not a junk camera. It's my camera. There's a big difference. If, by that definition, by the way, if a bit of rolling leather and a third-party battery was the definition of a junk camera, I think all of my cameras would be considered junk cameras. And the price, I hear you ask. The important part, 62,400 yen, which works out at about £320. But wait, there's more. You get 10% tax relief as a tourist in Japan. So after that, this Leica camera came out at £280. What a piece of junk. I mean, throw it in the bin. The one one thing that I was a little bit sad at, to be honest, is if I could have found one with the official box. It's a whole experience. There's drawers, there's pamphlets, there's everything. It is quite an experience. So if you can find one with a box, I highly recommend it, but obviously it doesn't change the way that the camera works. So back to the camera. I think the main reason that people like Leica, aside from the prestige and the excellent build quality, is the in-camera JPEGs and the colour science. Now, I really do enjoy editing my own images to taste, so I've put some pre-edited images in this video so far, but here are some in-camera JPEGs for your viewing pleasure. The colour JPEGs are a delight. I think they're quite punchy and quite nice. And talk about before it's time, in the menu here, which is very easy to use, by the way, I love Leica menus, we've got lots of different options in terms of customising the JPEGs. It's not anything quite like the Fujifilm recipe standards, but 2009, before its time, we have preset film, where you can choose standard, vivid, natural, black and white, natural, or black and white high contrast. We have sharpening, saturation, and then you can change the contrast as well in a number of different ways. I'm a contrasty gal. Whack it on full for me. Whack it on full. I'm shooting raw and JPEGs, but if it all goes terribly wrong, I've always got the raw to fall back on. Anyway, the colour ones are in natural with a bit of extra saturation and extra contrast. And I think they're pretty nice straight out of camera. So if you are looking for an everyday carry where you don't have to faff about with editing and it's stylish and it's lovely, this is a great option. But what I love most, I didn't shoot any of this in Japan because I was like, well, the city is so colourful, I'm not shooting in black and white, and that makes sense. But I've since discovered the joys of the high contrast monochrome, and my goodness, it's a thing of beauty. It brings a tear to my eye. I love the Leica monochrome. I've used it on a few cameras. It's in a couple of Lumix cameras, in fact, but having it built into a Leica, an older Leica, with its own colour science, made in-house by Leica, an older-ish lens, you know, the lens itself is a fixed lens that's been in use since 2009. I just think it gives the vibes. And I've been toying with the idea of making like a little everyday carry just to shoot black and white with. Really candid, fun, informal photographs. Just like a little challenge and a little bit of a break from the norm, because I do tend to edit pretty much every image that I shoot, even if I'm shooting every day. And I'd love the idea of having something that I can just use the JPEGs from and just go wild. I have two cameras in the running for that. I have the Leica X1 and also the Pentax MX1, which I also bought in Tokyo, which I shall have a full video on at a later date. It's time for me to deface or fix a camera again. Any excuse? So what's the catch? I'm hopelessly in love with the JPEG quality. It's a gorgeous looking Leica. It's very compact. It's an aps-c size sensor. It works. And if the gentleman really tried hard to dissuade me, it would never have worked once I'd seen the flash. For the montage. Obsessed. So what's the catch? What are the downsides of this camera? Because, you know, there are a few. There are more than a few. First of all, there are no video features to speak of, despite premium compacts from Leica prior to this one having video and after. It's very clear to me, I'm just speculating, but surely Panasonic must have been in control of the video aspects of the collaboration cameras, because this is the first one without Panasonic and there's no video. It's from 2009, it would look terrible anyway. But most notoriously, and the thing that you should be most aware of, is there is a shutter lag with this camera, which means when you press the shutter, it takes a fraction, maybe half a second or so before it actually takes the photo. And that might sound quite negligible. And if you're shooting something that's not blooming moving, it literally doesn't matter. But there was a few times in Japan where I was trying to take photographs of bicycles coming down the street into a pool of light. And it was a bit of a crapshoot as to whether I could get the subject where I wanted it or not. It's a little bit of a learning curve. I found over time, after using this for a couple of days, that I was anticipating the shutter lag and compensating for it, but it's still something to be aware of. If you want this to like capture your pets or your children or something fast moving, it may be a little bit frustrating to you. If you want it for street photography, travel photography, day-to-day stuff that isn't too fast moving, you're gonna love it. Now, if you like the finer things in life, just like this beautiful Leica camera, then here is a really premium creative accessory for you. This is the mxconsole made by Logitech, the kind sponsor of today's video. It's the perfect accessory if you like to photo edit or video edit, or you just want to automate some cool stuff in your workspace. Like this, for instance, it blew my tiny mind. I have Philip Hue lights all throughout my office, and here I can change from work lighting to filming lighting in just a few clicks. And yes, I've been playing with it all the time. The console automatically detects which application you're using and changes the presets for you. And the software is so easy to use. The console is officially affiliated with Adobe products, so you even get 3 months of Creative Cloud for free when you buy it. There's a marketplace as well for loads of other compatible apps. The second part of the console is the Creative Dial Pad, which can control a whole host of things. You can zoom in quickly in your timeline when you're video editing, or you can scan quickly through photos in Lightroom Library, for example. If you'd like to learn more about Logitech's mxconsole, then check out the link in the description below, and let's get back to the nerdiness. Also, 2009 aps-c contrast-based autofocus. This is a recipe for pretty sluggish autofocus, which I don't mind traditionally, except this camera does one thing that annoys me very much. You half press the shutter and it's like, yeah, that looks like it's in focus, sound. And then you take the shot, and then sometimes when it instantly reviews, it's just like, oh no, I'm just going to take a photograph of whatever's behind you. It's frustrating because you see it and you go, yep, I've got the shot. You take the shot and then it's like, meh. Maybe not. Sometimes the focus is a little bit iffy. Here are some fun photos of everything out of focus. However, there is a manual focus option, and there is a thumb dial on the back so you can very quickly sort of zone focus things. It's quite nice, there's magnification built in, so if you want to use manual focus you can. For things that are further away, it's absolutely fine. It's just if things are sort of closer to camera, where it has the decision between this and the background, sometimes it just prefers the background. So definitely bear that in mind. But do you know what? I'm going to sound like a right weirdo when I say this. I am so charmed by this camera and the look of it and how I feel when I'm shooting it, that even the nuances and quite frankly the flaws, I kind of find it charming. I can see how it would get annoying, and maybe once the honeymoon phase is over it will annoy me too, but right now it's dealable. What else? Wonderful high quality leaf shutter built into the lens, so you have a nice click when you take a photograph, but it's quiet enough that you don't disturb people around you for street photography, so win-win. The physical dial layout is superb. You've got a shutter speed dial and also an aperture dial on the right. There's nothing on the lens like you would find on an LX100 or a Fujifilm X100. And I really like that because the power is on the right, the aperture's on the right, and the shutter speed's on the right. You could technically use all of these things one-handed, and if the aperture is on the lens, it's always a two-handed job. And also as an aside, because of that, I can exactly see why this part of the leather is riding up, because that's where all the friction is when you change your settings. And just listen to the clicky dials. They're so good. There is a flaw, slight flaw. They're flush against the back of the camera, so put this thumb grip on, which has solved this problem entirely. It's the same one from the LX100, by the way. You don't have to buy one specifically for this camera. Because the dials were so flush to the back, sometimes when taking it out of my bag, for example, I would knock it and then I'd be like, why am I shooting at f16? What's going on? And you'll be quite happy to know if you just want a set it and forget it sort of thing, then you've got automatic options on both. In terms of how it feels in the hand, this is a beautiful nightmare, honestly. The LX100, or the Deluxe series of Leica Lumix collabs, the Lumix side took the ergonomics into account by adding a tiny little grip. Leica often opts for aesthetics over feel. Without the thumb grip, I sometimes found myself putting my thumb on the back of the blooming screen to get a bit of purchase, which it's not a touchscreen and it's quite sturdy, but you don't want to be doing that really, do you? There's very few places to put your hands otherwise, but the thumb grip, oh, it's the best £2 on Etsy I've ever spent. Honestly, it's so good. One more heart attack inducing word of caution: because it is an older camera, it will only accept up to 32 gig memory cards. I whacked in a 64 and just got the time and date and an error whenever I turned it on, and I was just like, oh dear. Maybe it was a junk camera after all. It does have an internal memory, a comical internal memory that holds, I think, like 4 photographs, which is how I was testing it in the shop. But yeah, 32 gig or below and you're fine. So, if you are looking for a cheaper Leica, and honestly, like, there's so many Leicas out there, it's not even really one of the more prestigious ones, but I still find them very charming. I think the X1 is a great camera to consider, particularly if you can find it for a good price. And the good thing about Leicas is they very seldom lose money. A year or two back, I got a very good deal on the Leica T-Type 701, the aluminium beauty, and I got it for under £400, and even in Japan, this was going for for like £800 to £1,000. So you very seldom lose money with a Leica. So if you are looking for something interesting as an everyday carry, something a little bit more premium and quirky and special with stunning, authentic, straight out of camera JPEGs, I think it's a great option. I'm completely in love with it, particularly the Leica monochrome. And if you can find one with the original box, you will be in for a treat. Watch my LX100 video next, where I go through how this camera, the Lumix LX100, is basically a Leica clone. So that might be another way to get into the Leica life without having to spend an arm and a leg, which is what I'm all about.